Hello fun people, I'm Isaac Carlson and I'm focused on spreading magic by discussing Disney. And today I want to go through everything we know about Lewis's mother to attempt to understand her identity once and for all. And of course, if you are new here, you're a Disney fan and you'd like to see more discussions like this one, then consider joining our community and subscribing. When I would watch Meet the Robinsons on road trips on my family's little portable DVD player in the car, I always wanted to just tear back the hood on Lewis's birth mother to finally get a chance to reveal who she was. Similarly to Lewis, I wanted to understand who had possibly given him up, since he was such an incredible, driven, and intelligent child, and I hoped I would eventually find an answer. I mean, I wanted to be like Lewis and grow up to become brilliant, successful, with a massive family, so how could his life begin in such an uncertain place?
No one knows anything about her. No one even saw her.
Wrong. I saw her. Once.
All we really ever saw of Lewis's mother was her carrying Lewis in a box to the 6th Street orphanage, giving her son one last hug, showing she did care for him, flashing her face for a brief moment, and then walking back into the rain. She was gone just as quickly as she was introduced, which meant we just couldn't know much about her. Lewis never found out who his mother was, what happened to her, or who she became. From the little information we knew about her, she looked young, likely indicating that she had Lewis when she was early into her life. But again, who knows why she was giving Lewis up for adoption? Maybe there was some type of messy affair, or she could have been a teen mother, or her and her partner may have just not wanted to raise a son. Whatever the reasoning was, they did make a decision that put Lewis in the best position to succeed. If his parents couldn't take care of him, or were not in a good place emotionally, mentally, or physically to do so, putting him up for adoption gave him an opportunity to escape whatever his life might have been, just as Mildred told Lewis.
My own mother didn't even want me.
Now stop it. She may not have been able to take care of you. Did you ever think of that? I am sure that she was only thinking about what was best for you.
My mom was adopted by my grandma Phyllis and my grandpa Augie, and she always said the same thing, that the greatest gift her parents could have given her was to put her in a home that could take care of her. And I think that's what happened for Lewis as well. Whoever had Lewis loved him enough to allow someone better fit to take care of him to take that role in his life. When I interviewed Steve Anderson, the director of Meet the Robinsons, for my podcast series Following Dreams, in addition to asking him about how he became an animator and what it took for him to become a director, I also asked about Lewis's mother, and here's what he said. Was there ever a point in the development of the story where the audience would have ever learned who Lewis's mother was?
There was a scene where you almost saw her face.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, through most of the versions, the ending was different, and Wilbur did not take Lewis back to the steps of the orphanage, but really the climax of the movie was back at the science fair, and Lewis puts on the memory scanner, and he brings up the image of his mom. And so the camera is in his crib looking up, and we see the backlit figure of his mom looking over the bars at him. And just when you think you're about to see who she is, he turns off the memory scanner. And everybody's like, what are you doing? You could have almost, obviously, blah, blah, blah. You could have seen your mother. And he's like, I realize I don't need to see her. It's essentially the same beat as the steps of the orphanage. It's just, it wasn't actually physically, he wasn't physically there where he could reach out and touch her.
With these scenes, we would have gotten a glimpse into what Lewis's life was like with his mother. We would see her crying at the table, again showing that her life might have been too difficult at that time to raise Lewis like she hoped to, which would eventually allow us to see a rough form of her above Lewis. But still nothing substantial was learned about her. She practically remained just as much of a mystery as Lewis's father, and the reason for that was because that was never meant to be at the heart of the story. To be honest, I really don't know why so many of us are obsessed with family connections and origins. Why do we all feel compelled to learn who Lewis's mother is? maybe it's just comforting to have answers that set up how people become the way they are. Like, if we suddenly knew that Lewis's mother was a professor at Harvard, or was a doctor, or was a high-level analyst for the CIA, a lot of Lewis's brains, compassion, and success could make more sense, because we could assume that he inherited those traits. Or maybe we just don't like not having answers to questions, and that's why we all just seek them out together, especially when it's about brilliant animated films like Meet the Robinsons. I think most importantly, though, we empathize with Lewis's struggle and feel that this search is important because he deems it as something that means something to him. We connect to this feeling of being lost, and we want to see that undone. But we never get that big revelation that suddenly sets Lewis's destiny into motion. We never actually see the woman who gave birth to him.
I mean, a lot of people would say, well, do you know who his mom is, or do you know what she looks like? And my answer was always, well, if Lewis decided he didn't need to know, then I don't need to know. So I really don't know who she would be. So I don't really have an answer for that. But there was never going to be any reveal of her or reconnection between she or Lewis or any of that stuff.
Yeah. The point was to move Lewis forward into his life.
Exactly.
And not look back.
Yeah.
That makes sense. If you'd like to listen to the very intriguing and inspiring interview I had with Steve, I'll leave a link to it down below, along with the entire playlist of interviews that I've had with other Disney animators, writers, and content creators. You can also watch new interviews live on Monday on this channel and can listen to those episodes of Following Dreams on my podcast, Wotso Radio, which again will be linked below. Now, in the film, the mother was actually the model of Franny, Lewis's wife and Wilbur's mom. So if you peer into the shadows within the mother's hood, all we can ever glimpse and see is actually just going to be Franny, because at no point were we ever going to have a moment where Lewis and his biological mother met again. So it kind of feels futile and disingenuous to go through the people in Midtown or the bubbles in the future and search for someone who looked like Lewis's mother, because we already know what she looks like. And I'm pretty sure, like 24 to 25% sure, Franny isn't Lewis's mom. I'm fairly confident. The fact of the matter was that there was really not much energy put into who Lewis's birth mother was, because at no point were the creators ever planning to reveal her identity. Through every timeline that exists within the story, Lewis was going to come to understand that he was going to have a new family.
I don't get it. Why'd you just let her go?
Because I already have a family.
There are some people who go in search of the parents that created them when they are adopted. But for my own mom and for Lewis, they never went down that path fully. Sure, a part of me kind of wonders who had my mom, but I feel like I already met my grandparents. I met the people who raised my mom, and those are the people that were family for me. And I believe Lewis feels the same way now. Lewis did have a mother who gave birth to him, who made the difficult choice to put him up for adoption, and while I don't want to diminish that part of motherhood, I also don't think we need to know who had Lewis to understand the identity of his mother. The woman who kept him going through his early childhood was Mildred. She was the one who helped craft Lewis into the young man who would be able to even build a memory scanner because of her work with him at the orphanage. And I don't think that bond that they built over his time at the orphanage with her working with him is a bond that they'd ever be able to break. But the parents who nurtured his creativity, allowed him to explore his brilliant mind, and welcomed him into a home again was Lucille Krunkelhorn and Bud Robinson. Even though it took them 12 years to find Lewis, that waiting was all worth it, because through their support, they gave Lewis the tools to go far beyond what he was capable of by providing him a home, a laboratory, and all of the love they had within them. These were the people who showed up to take care of him, shaped him day in and day out, and would guide him the rest of their lives. And that's why I believe Lewis Robinson's mother is Lucille. But let me know down below what your opinion is on this big question. Are you satisfied without learning who Lewis's birth mother is? Also, be sure to subscribe and click the beautiful bell if you're new, and then click on another magical video on the screen or in the description. Finally, be sure to listen to Following Dreams live on Mondays, and as always, thanks for watching and have a magical day.